Misa kwakwitla matana humath kwimos tamo is homish eats oilatooth antha Rhiannon Bennett slitsnath humath kwim. Good morning, my dear friends and relatives. It gives me really good feelings to see you all here today and to again welcome each and every one of you to my occupied and unceded territory. We have an incredible speaker coming up next. I've lost her now. Where did she go? Sylvia McAdam. Really pleased to welcome you to the stage. Oh, no, don't sit down. It's your turn. I'm incredibly humbled to be welcoming to the stage one of the founders of the Idle No More movement, to have been so inspired by the work that has been started. I don't want to say the work was already happening, but to unify and to unite the work that was happening, I think is a more appropriate thing. Because I think there was a lot of things that were happening, but that Idle No More movement was a real resurgence in unifying our voices and giving us a platform and opportunities to things and talk about and to assert ourselves in the way that colonialization has really suppressed. So I really raise my hands in respect for all of the work that has happened from that, and I'm really excited to listen to the words that she's going to share with us today. So please join me in welcoming Sylvia McAdam to the stage.
I'm a little shorter, so I gotta bring the mic down. I don't like podiums because I swing my arms around when I talk. So, yeah, if it's possible, yeah. Oh, really? Could I get a mic that I could walk around with? If it's possible. Can you hear me? Okay, that's better. So, as that beautiful young lady said, my name is Sylvia McAdam, Saysewahum. I come from the lands of the nēhīyaw. We are the buffalo people. And I want to say, mstena naskomun anosipi mamo paya. Aumi na ski na naskomun, minogi skog na naskomau, mina kahkiok tatamskat no, aumi na kihtea na naskomau, mina ksimantu kasawim guau, aumi na ski na naskomutotin. I want to thank each and every one of you, the organizers of this beautiful gathering we have today, and the elder that's going to say prayers of kindness and I also want to thank the Indigenous peoples whose lands that we are on, and I want to thank the land that we are standing on. It's a beautiful day. It's a beautiful day. The reason why I still speak my language is because my mother and my father were hidden away when the Indian agent and the priests came for the children. So I'm very fortunate. I still speak the language of my ancestors, and I still say my prayers in the language. And I see a revitalization happening, and people are getting excited about learning Indigenous languages, and people are falling in love with the land again, which is really important. You need to fall in love with the land, which is what happened to me. I've always loved the land, always. And I'm going to walk you through a little journey of how Idle No More happened for me. I can't speak for the other three ladies, but I can speak for my experience. I had just finished law school. I'm a professor at the University of Windsor at the Faculty of Law, and I get an opportunity to speak to the first-year law students, and they're learning about what I'm talking to you today about. So here I am, newly out of law school, And I was thinking, okay, here I go, I'm gonna make the money now. Real colonized, right? And the Creator had different plans for me. The Creator said, nope. So I was writing a chapter on my book about land, and I thought, I had all these fuzzy little memories about the land and my people, and I thought, I have to go back home. I've been away for about 15 years getting my colonial education and fulfilling the treaty term and promise to education, because that's one of the treaty terms and promises under Treaty 6. Treaty 6 is the lands in which I'm from. So I went home, threw my things in storage. I went home, and what I found there was a profound love. I fell in love with the land again. And as a lawyer, you never talk about love. So I was really, the other lawyers backed the heck away from me. She's talking about love. You know how when you first fall in love, you can't get that person out of your head, you always got to be around them, you know? That's how I felt. I even would drive into some random road and I would park my truck and I would fall asleep. And the dreams I had were so transformative. And in the process of going back into the land, I started going back into the history of my people. Because when you fall in love, you just don't fall in love with your heart. You fall in love with your mind, and that's your intellectual part of you, the emotional, the physical, and the spiritual. It becomes a spiritual journey. And that's what happened. I started reconnecting. But in that process, I also seen the devastation and the deforestation of indigenous lands that are supposed to be protected through Treaty 6. The number of treaties did not cede or surrender any land or anything, their peace and friendship. But the colonial state will tell you that we ceded and surrendered, which is not true. There's more and more evidence showing that we did not cede or surrender. Anyway, so here I am out on the land, and I'm seeing the destruction. And then somebody tagged me on Facebook, and it was about Bill C-45. And I've started learning to listen to this, and I suggest that all of you explore this within yourselves, because every one of you have it, every one of you. And I call it that spirit world voice. Somebody tagged me on Facebook, and I just wanted to ignore it because I was happily in love, right? I was happily in love. And I felt this tug, and that tug wouldn't stop. It kept tugging and tugging. And I had to stop myself, and I turned around and I looked at it. Here it was Bill C-45. That tug was taking me to Bill C-45. So I went in and I read it. Who reads the bills, right, from Parliament? Nobody ever does that. But I read it. And I had to even with my law degree, I had to take a Black's Law Dictionary to read it, to understand it. Even then, I had to send it to one of my good friends who had so much more experience in law than I did. And then she read it, and then she came back and said, okay, this is what's happening. I was stunned. I was stunned at what it was going to do. And it was only the first bill. There was going to be other bills that were being introduced and being passed. So here I am. I'm sitting in front of my computer and thinking, who do I reach out to? I could feel the panic. And at the same time, when I was beginning to understand the implications of it, I was standing out on a land. And I never understood these cliches. where it said, I drew a line. I never understood those things, but I drew a line. I drew a line right across my people's land, and I said, nope, I can't do it. I can't give anymore. So here I am trying to figure out how am I going to reach people. I started emailing a few people, no response. So I'm in front of my computer and I thought, well, what about all these people? What about all these people on Facebook? What about all these people that are the grassroots people that are in the most marginalized areas? The ones that understood pain, the ones who understood injustice. So I thought, I want to reach out to them. So on November 10th, 2012, 4 of us women, we didn't even know each other, by the way. People think we were friends, but the first time we met was on November 10th, 2012, when we did the teach-in in Saskatoon. Our only communication was through Facebook. So here we are, this blonde-haired, blue-eyed white woman standing with 3 Indigenous women. And our very first teach-in, we didn't even speak. All we did was we opened up the floor to the most marginalized people, and they got to speak. That's all we did. If you look at the first video of Idle No More on YouTube, none of us spoke. All we did was introduce a few people. We had a young person. We even had an MP come and speak. And that's what triggered Idle No More. And it was during a blizzard. You could see people pushing their vehicles in the background. Like, it was a crazy day, but it was a full room. It was a full room, all because we made room for the most marginalized voices. And we took that template and we took it to Regina. We did the same thing. I spoke maybe 5 minutes at that event, and we kept doing that. We kept opening the floor to the most marginalized people, and that's how Idle No More happened. And we continue to do that. I refuse to be called an activist, an environmentalist, or a leader. I'm not a leader. I don't consider myself a leader within Idle No More. I'm an organizer, just as all of you are. Idle No More has taken me all over the world. I just came from Washington, D.C., and I get to see things, I get to hear the most powerful stories. I get to meet the most grassroots people, and I get to hear those stories. I'm thinking maybe someday I might compile those stories and put them into a book. I was invited to go and speak in Hobbema. And I was going, at my own cost. Most of the time I do. When I'm doing Idle No More work, I don't get paid for it. It's all volunteer. So I walk into this teach-in, and I do my thing. I'm done speaking, and then I'm getting ready to leave. And then these couple of old grandmothers, we call them nūkums, they come up to me, and I thought they were going to shake my hand because they had their hands out. So I grab their hand, I start shaking their hands, and I pull them in for a hug. And here they put money and some change in my hand. And then they told me they had a bake sale just so they could give me gas money. It was like $62 or something like that. But that's what grassroots people do. And they support each other. And they understand especially the older generation, because they've been in this resistance. They've been in this revolution for so long. They understand what it takes. So today, in what is called feminist, in this process of feminism, and it's been going on a while. In my travels, I get to speak with many women from all walks of life. And we have to ask ourselves today, has feminism corrected or changed misogyny, patriarchy, and the theft of Indigenous lands? Today, we get the report from the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, and finally, Canada has used the word genocide. In my own family, two of my aunts were murdered, my mother's sisters. My own brother was murdered in Saskatoon. And that's not an unusual story. So for me, I've known the word genocide personally and intimately, and on a very violent level. So I'm happy that that word is finally being used without adding cultural to it. Because as a lawyer, when you add words in front of genocide, like cultural genocide, you cannot take it to the World Court because it doesn't have legal standing. This report, so this report, it may now have legal standing to be taken to the United Nations World Court for Canada to answer to its failings. The next step that I put towards the women here is Indigenous people have for so long been saying our lands have been stolen. Everything about Canada is based on stolen lands. Until we have those very challenging and difficult conversations with Indigenous peoples about land, reconciliation will have no meaning. Reconciliation, the very basis of it, is land. It's all about land. And when we talk about our part in it, because back home, when we do our ceremonies, when we lift up our pipes and we do our ceremonies, I challenge my own people not to bring in plastic. Do not give plastic as part of the giveaways, because plastic contributes to oil and gas. And it's kind of defeating when you're making a stand out on the land and then you're hauling in plastic. See? So I've been asking ceremonial people to put a moratorium, perhaps, just an idea, on what sort of things we use as a giveaway. And the other thing my family have done is we've quit celebrating Christmas. Because Christmas, again, contributes to the plastic, giving plastic toys, plastic everything. So my grandchildren kind of struggled with it a little bit. But they're getting used to it. Now we're planning, with the money we save, we try and do family trips somewhere into the land to going back into the land. So that's my personal contribution, personal decisions in our own family. But on a bigger scale, the work that I do within Idle No More, I ask the women, what relationship, especially the brown and black bodies who are non-Indigenous, as well as the white people, the white women, what relationship will you create with the Indigenous peoples whose lands that you benefit from? What relationship are you going to create with them? Because right now, to be honest with you, feminism, democracy, reconciliation, equality, they're not working for Indigenous peoples. It's not working. If it did, we would already have our lands back. And if people are unable to give our lands back, and this is the law speaking, the lawyer within me, the legal training, what is the alternative? What is the alternative? Reparation, compensation, because as Arthur Manuel stated, the non-Indigenous people have developed a human right to be here. So we're not all going to, no one is leaving anytime soon. So we need to find a place in which Indigenous people can flourish. Flourish in a way that we're not dying, as that report is stating. Back home, my aunt is being buried, but she always supported this work that I do. And what I found when I ran for chief in my community was half the population on my reserve is women. Do you think I got in? No. There's something going on with women that we're unable to support each other. So we need to take a look, a hard and honest look at how come there is no female prime minister. How come there's no female party leader in the Liberals and the Conservatives, who are the leading parties in Canada? And then for the Indigenous peoples, we need to ask ourselves, why is there not a woman national chief for the Assembly of First Nations? So, Indigenous people cannot be racist. The power structure does not allow for it. Neither can women be misogynist, but we can take on the behaviors of a misogynist. Just as a racist person can take on the behaviors of a racist. Let me explain that a little bit. I had a profound learning experience, a paradigm shifting, a very painful paradigm shifting experience. And that's where I learned about the misogyny that existed within myself. This is how come I can recognize misogyny within women, the behaviors, you take on the behaviors. My my grandchild. The Cree kinship is very extensive. It's powerful and it's sacred. My first cousin, her daughter had a child. So that child becomes my grandchild through the bloodline. So this grandchild was a little bit older, and she grew up, and she struggled. And I knew how she grew up. She grew up in an alcoholic home. You know, there was abuse. You know the story. So when she started hanging around with my daughter, I thought I blamed her for the bad influence that she had on my daughter because my daughter started drinking. And every time I seen that granddaughter walking on the road, I would refuse to give her a ride. And I knew she was in a violent relationship, but my behavior towards her was unkind. I was rude to her. I blamed her. And then one day, a couple of years ago, about 3 years ago now, she left her violent boyfriend's shelter, and I think she got locked out. Anyway, she could have walked to a nearby house, but she didn't. Instead, in the middle of January, she went and leaned up against a fence post and froze to death. So when that happened, it was so painful because then her death revealed myself, who I was. Because I could have gave her a ride. I could have. I could have reached out to her when she was going through her violent relationship. What happened to her that she just gave up like that? To die. And that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about, how we contribute to each other's pain to the point that that person gives up. See? And that's because of my behaviors of misogyny, the hatred I projected to other women. So I'm very aware of it today. And it was such a painful lesson to learn. So now fast forward to when I was running for chief. I could have gotten in a landslide had the women voted for me. But for some reason, a lot of women buy into the idea that only men should be in positions of leadership. Let me say that again. Women have bought into the idea that men are the only ones that should be in positions of leadership. These colonial structures, where the CEOs are mainly men, these colonial structures which vote men in are upheld and maintained by women. These structures would collapse if women, every woman, refused to maintain these structures. And the reason why they're running so well is because women benefit from it, especially the white women. The white women benefit from these colonial structures, and they are maintained and upheld by them. And then we have the brown and black bodies who are posturing and performing whiteness and support and maintain these very systems that bring us together here. My own people are beginning to posture in that same way. They're beginning to posture as white people and are beginning to perform whiteness. And I say this because many of our Indian Act leadership think that the colonial economics are the way to go. So they're the ones, the men, who are agreeing and signing agreements that are very problematic. They're changing their relationship to the land. Because once you start believing that the only way you can live with the land is to sell it for profit, for money, then you change your relationship to the children, to the trees, to the medicines. Your relationship changes. You are no longer speaking for your grandchildren. You are no longer speaking for the generations to come. Now you're speaking for money and a perceived power that you can get from the land. I'm very aware of that as I walk around on the land. Where I am, on the Treaty 6 lands, I am having a hard time to protect one freshwater stream. And we share that water with the little people. And when I take my grandchildren there, we drink from the water and we put jelly beans out for the little people because they like jelly beans. Something that is supposed to be natural, to drink water from the land, has become unnatural. A little thing, a simple act as drinking water, has become unnatural. So, while I'm out there, I just finished being taken to court, and I just got an email from a good friend of mine who was representing us. He said that the Crown is not going to appeal it, so that's good. It's good news. Yeah. And in that court case, what started as a conversation with the province, and back and forth for 3 years we were meeting with the province. They were saying, this is our land. And we're like, no it isn't. Yes it is. No it isn't. It was like back and forth like that. We were very kindly, no, it's not your land. No. And they're like, yes it is. And the story that you don't get to hear in the media is this. Back in 1990, about 92 to about 97, 98, they found oil and gas on my people's land. So they went around. And if you know anything about how Indigenous people move on the land, we don't just have one shelter. You can't. You got to have multiple shelters as you're traveling. And we had multiple shelters out there. So the province went around burning down our shelters. And when they burned down our shelters, we said, well, we're going to replace that shelter. And then they told us, no, you can't. And we were like, yeah, we are. And they were like, no, you can't. So back and forth again like that for a while. And then they told us, if you're going to build a shelter, you got to get a permit from us. And we're like, no, we don't need a permit from you. We've existed here far longer than you've ever set foot here. And then we started building, and then they came and charged us. And then they said, you don't have a right to build here. And yet, just a little ways down on the other side of the road, my ancestors are buried. Their bones are literally sticking out from the ground. And there's about 2,000 of them buried there. And in those graves are also children who ran from the Indian agent and the priest when they came for the children. And those children, when they seen the priest and the Indian agent, they ran. And where they ran, they were buried. Can you imagine the kind of decision those children had to make when they ran, knowing that they may die? And many of them did. And where they died, that's where they were buried. And those are the lands I was trying to protect when Idle No More happened. And so here we are, we're trying to build. And yet, the colonial government allowed a campground to be built right beside the bones of my people, even on top of them. And then we got taken to court for something akin to trespass under the Parks Act. And so we went to court and we challenged them on it, and the case was dismissed. So this is where we are at now. So we're going to rebuild our shelter. And this is where shelter becomes a form of resistance against the colonial state. And this is where we need the non-Indigenous allies. We need you to support these actions, like the tiny home warriors. Go there and support them. Because when you're standing alone there, the non-Indigenous colonial state can do violent acts and there would be no witnesses. And I'm going to give you an example. 2 years ago, my nephew and I were out on the land, and he was only 12 at the time. My nephew was 12 at the time. And we did a symbolic blockade of the road. It was a couple of twigs. There's all kinds of roads out there. We picked this one road because it led to my shelter. And then we put up signs on the road, and then we left. We had run out of supplies, like, I don't know, Pepsi. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. We ran out of salt and different things like that. And then we left. We were gone for about 3 or 4 hours. And when we got back, our one signage was shot up. Somebody must have been watching us. I know they were watching us. And if you know anything about guns, a .22 will not kill a human unless you purposely aim for their head. The bullet holes on our signage were from a rifle. And a rifle is lethal. It will kill. And I think my nephew and I kind of went into shock. So we drove into our shelter and we started cooking. We didn't even talk. We started cooking. He made a fire. He's chopping wood. I started getting the food together. And then after we were done, we sat around our fire. We weren't even talking. And remember, my nephew's 12. And he says to me, "Auntie," and I look at him, and I'm like, "Yeah." And he says, "You know that was a death threat." And I'm like, "Yeah." And he says to me, "I'm scared. I want to go home." And I said, "Okay, we'll go home." And he meant to the reserve that I'm registered as an Indian. So we went home. The next morning, he calls me up again. He says, it was about 10 o'clock in the morning. He phones me up. He says, Auntie. I'm like, yeah, we have to go back. So we went back, and we stayed. And the good news is we managed to save a small portion of the forest that they didn't clear cut, and it's still standing there today. So someday my nephew will have a powerful story to tell. He will. And that's how I'm raising my grandchildren. That's how I'm raising my nephews and nieces. I'm raising them from the land. How many of you have heard of the Amazon rainforest? Raise your hand. That's good, that's good. Did you know that Canada surpasses the Amazon rainforest in terms of deforestation? Did you know that? We should all be rightfully outraged about what's happening in the Amazon rainforest. But how come we don't know about what's happening on our own lands here, on what Canada is doing? They're surpassing the Amazon rainforest in terms of the clear cutting and the deforestation. How many of you have heard of, know about the education system, like the Indigenous people and the education system, right? So the province of Saskatchewan funds, every province actually does this. They fund children to go to school, right? Okay, so the province of Saskatchewan funds an English-speaking child $11,000 a year. That's to go to school in a provincial system. A French-speaking child in the province of Saskatchewan gets funded $17,000 per year. Guess how much my grandchildren get funded on the reserve per year? Go like this if you think you have a number. Raise your hand. 5,000? You're generous. 3,434. That's how much my grandchildren get funded. The government and the colonial state gets away with doing that because they're relying on your racism, on your behaviors, misogynistic behaviors, and your supporting of the patriarchal systems. They can get away with doing that because they rely on you to think of my people as incapable, that we're all drunks, that we're all violent, that we're all undeserving to be treated as humans. And you're going to keep hearing that in the media. Oh, they can't take care of their things. They can't even govern themselves. They rely on you to continue believing that narrative, which is why they refuse, even though they've been given their 7th notice to fund the child welfare system on par. And that's Cindy Blackstock. So what I want to leave you with today is question the information that you are being fed. Take a look at how you benefit from stolen lands. Challenge yourself to question misogyny, patriarchy. And I'm sure there are those among you that are already doing that. And I honor you, and I support you in your journey, because it's been a tough journey for me as well through Idle No More, when I started learning that I was supporting these patriarchal systems. So that's what I can leave you with. Idle No More has no leaders. We have no leaders. What we have is a group, lots of Indigenous people who are leaders, and we always try to make space for them, because every one of us have our own power that we bring to each of our circles in our journey towards freedom, liberation, and self-determination for Indigenous peoples. I think more and more, and I'm so grateful to be witnessing it, more and more I am seeing non-Indigenous people, brown and black bodies, coming together and having these difficult conversations and challenging the power structures and the patriarchal systems. They're beginning to challenge them and question them. And I see that because there's a treaty walk happening right now, and it's being arranged by the Mormons, and they're all white people. And they're walking for the treaties, and they're walking in solidarity with the Indigenous peoples. I just Googled it. It's like Treaty Walk, and I'll be joining them in next week sometime to support them. And it's those kinds of events and solidarities that inspire me, give me hope, because we're at a point now, I don't think we have choices. I don't think we have much choices. Our environment and the climate crisis that's happening, we are not going to be left with choices anymore. It's an honor and it's a privilege for all of us to sit here and have these conversations. But in other parts of the world, their conversation is, where are they going to get clean water? You know, though I don't want to reach that point. I want to be part of a world where that we take action now in whatever means possible, in a peaceful, non-violent, loving way. I want to thank the organizers again for inviting me and for me to stand here and to share this little bit of information that I have. And I want to thank the Indigenous peoples. Every time I open up my Facebook, I swear the Indigenous people in BC are taking action, and then I'm like, damn it, I gotta go do something. I just get really inspired by the Indigenous people here. They're so powerful and so strong. And then on top of that, they're mobilizing their allies. And I'm standing in Saskatchewan going, damn it. I'm like, and then I look at my few Indigenous allies. I'm like, we got some, you know. But I'm very proud of your work. And I'm very proud of every one of you. And I shake hands with every one of you in the work that you're doing. Keep doing it. And I encourage you, don't give up, even if you feel overwhelmed. When I start to feel overwhelmed, I remember I was always driving along, come to think of it. And it's always Sheila McLean that calls me and tells me, you gotta pull over, I got a story. So this one time, and it'll be my last story. She's trying to pull me off the stage. I was driving along and Sheila calls me, pull over. So I pull over and then she said, we got a letter from the Amazon. And I'm like, okay. And she read it to me. It was a chief from the Amazon and he was telling us, he sent a letter to us saying they were standing against the paramilitary and the paramilitary had guns pointed at them. And here they are, the indigenous people, they have bow and arrows and they had their spears and their rocks and they're standing there against the guns and they were chanting, "Idle no more." And the chief said that was their battle cry. That was amazing. So I want to hear this 4 times to the 4 directions because my people believe in the 4 directions. I'll say idle and you say no more. Okay? Idle. No more. Idle. No more. Idle. No more. Idle. No more. Right on. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Wow. Etsina. Aichka. So we're having a decolonizing day today. So I'm going to ask all of you to bear with us. The organizers of this conference, we have in our heart a little bit of work that we need to do today. For those of you who were here yesterday, can you just who was here yesterday? Yeah. So we have a little bit of work to do in response to some of the things that played out yesterday. So at this time, if I could ask the organizers to make their way up to the front here. And we're going to do we're going to do a bit of a ceremony in the truest of Musqueam ways. So this is how we do things here. So you're going to have to I just ask all of you to hold the space with your open heart and your open mind as we go through our process of sorting out the work that we need to do right now. And it's part of my traditions, and I was brought on to this committee in the role of decolonizing. So it was really in my heart to ask the work look like how we do work here on these lands. So we're going to invite our elder today. So, and before I do that, I should also mention we have elders on again today in that back room there. We have Shane Point and Holy Cow here somewhere. So it's part of our traditions that when we have made a mistake or we've done something wrong and we've got some feelings that we need to talk about, that we hire someone to speak for us, that when we're having in those times of troubles, we don't do our own speaking. So I'm not okay to stand here and speak because I've got a little bit of hurt that I need to work through. So we've asked Elder Shane Point to come and be our speaker today. I believe he's probably going to be the only man to the floor through this whole conference. And the reason that Shane is coming to speak is that in our community, in our ways, our men are our speakers, our voices. And it's not because the men are the leaders or because the men know what to say. Most of the time there's a woman standing behind him telling him what to say. This is our cultural practice. This is how we do our work. So I just wanted people to be prepared that there is going to be a man's voice at the mic today and why that is the appropriate person to be doing the speaking for us today. So I will turn it over to Shane, who probably doesn't want the mic. Do you want the mic? Maybe? Probably, yeah. So...
Hi. What I found interesting is that when the honored lady was asking for you to say no more, what I noticed was at least 60% of you didn't respond. So I'm going to ask you again, when I say idle, all of you say no more. Idle? No more. Idle? Idle? No. There's one lady sitting back there. She's not participating. Idle? No. Awesome. Just so that you know and understand, throughout my life, I've been constantly moved ahead by my aunties. Part of the Coast Salish tradition is that men speak. It's not because women can't. It's not because women can't. We're not a community of people who don't like women or don't think women can't do. It's part of the job. And we're given that job by our mothers, by our aunties, by our grandparents. So I'm here today at invitation, and I'm absolutely honored to be here to listen to the speakers and to watch you. What I find interesting is your reaction to the words. So I'm here learning today, and that's good for me because I have 3 daughters. I love them. When I was young, and my first daughter's born and my second daughter's born, my male cousins asked me how I feel about not having sons. And I was confused by the question for quite some time. And one of my cousins asked me again, aren't you sad that you don't have sons? And I said, no, I have really beautiful daughters. So my children are women. My mom, as a matter of fact, was a woman. And she's my principal caregiver and my principal teacher in my life. So I'm always interested to hear what women have to say. Because you, the non-Indigenous women in the room, you're in the same position as we are as colored people. And I remember sitting at a meeting one day, and the wealthy lady sitting next to me was white, and I asked her, I said, do you feel like you're equal to the people speaking in the moment, who just happened to be white politician guy. And she said yes. And I said, well, that's really interesting because the way Canada continues to treat women, the way the province continues to treat women, all women, women of color, of all colors, and that's sad. I believe, and I wish one of my daughters was here, she's the activist in the family, and I'm extremely proud of her because when she's out doing her work, she says, I'm not doing this for Indians. I'm doing this for all human beings so that future generations are okay. Where we're stuck, and one of the words that the honored lady used was construct. So we're stuck in the construct of right now. Indigenous people all over North America and South America, our belief system, our value system wasn't for us now, always looking at 7 generations ahead and how do our actions actually impact 7 generations from now. And naturally, we always want that to happen in a very positive way. Thank you for listening. We had a commercial. Yeah, I'm the commercial. Hey.
We're going to call our witnesses now.
Okay.
So our first witness is Dania.
Who?
Dania?
Tanya.
So you told them that we're calling witnesses?
Okay.
Right?
Okay. For those of you wonderful ladies who are here, and the few gentlemen, in Coast Salish work, if you do not call witnesses, the work didn't happen. We need witnesses. In all of our work, handing down names, property, gifts, sacred items, we call witnesses. We feed them, we ask them to witness so that the work is done. My understanding today, and I'm honored to be here as speaker for this wonderful family of organizers, my honor to speak for them. Witnesses, when you're called, you're to listen, you're to watch, and you're to feel. You'll be provided with an opportunity to respond to what you've seen, heard, and felt. Very important. You are naturally, everyone in the room is a witness. These 4 are special witnesses. They're the ones that are going to carry the history of the moment forward.
So the first witness is Dania? Dania?
Dania. Dania. Dania, please.
Follow behind me one at a time?
The family here would like you to witness the work that they're going to do. I'm going to go on this side because it's my good ear.
Okay.
And it's okay to speak up.
Heather Tuff is the next one.
Heather
Tuff.
Heather Tuff. Heather Tuff. We'd like you to witness the work that's going to happen here today.
Rain Daniels?
Slowly.
Rain Daniels?
Rain Daniels. Rain Daniels. Rain Daniels. Family would like you to witness the work that they're doing today.
Sarah?
Sarah.
I didn't catch her last name. I just spoke with her.
Sarah. Sarah, the family would like you to witness the work that they're going to do here today. This work that this wonderful family is doing is making an apology. This house, they've invited you, these wonderful ladies, strong ladies, they built this house. They built this house and they invited all of you into their house. They invited you into their house to hear the good words, to hear the excellent messages, most importantly, to share strong medicine with each of you. In their planning, in their hearts, what they wanted was a place, a house, a beautiful house that's in the process of being decolonized. What happened is that in their planning, they invited colonizers into the space. And they want to apologize to each and every one of you for doing that. They want to apologize to each and every one of you. They want you to know that in their hearts, they apologize to you for that oversight. What they did wasn't malicious intent, wasn't meant to hurt anyone. It happened. It happened, and the reaction to that was strong. It was a strong reaction, which is important. The reaction was important. It was an important one because it spoke to the issue of what we do when we work. When we work, we do not wish to hurt anyone with our actions, whether they were by intent or whether they were by accident. This wonderful family, these wonderful ladies, today, they say to you, heartfelt apology. They want you to know with all of their hearts that they didn't mean to hurt anyone with the invitation and with allowing the colonizers into the room, into their house, pardon me, at the moment. So they apologize to you. They hope that the apology is accepted. They also want you to know that it was a very, very powerful teaching to them. And they're going to take that lesson to heart, and they're going to move forward in the future. They are going to do a better job. Mistakes are to teach us, whether the mistakes are intentional or accidental. They're meant to teach, and they're taking the lesson to heart, and they're going to ensure in all of their work in the future that they don't make the same mistake. So, to all of you, they apologize. If the apology is accepted, please raise your hands or say yes, we accept the apology, and then we can move on. Oh, beautiful. Dear ladies, did you hear your invited guests say, we heard your apology and we accept it? Did you hear them? Awesome. Oh. Wasn't that wonderful? Oh, so this wonderful family, they heard that you've accepted. In the great teachings, once an apology is made and an apology is accepted, then it is no more. It's not mentioned again. It isn't mentioned again. It's not to be brought up 2 years from now, tomorrow, because the apology was made, it was accepted, it's over. So I want to thank all of you invited guests to this house. I want to say, as a witness to this moment as well, that I heard you accept the apology. And I think that that's absolutely beautiful, because if you didn't, then we can't progress, we can't move forward. I believe that the intention of these wonderful ladies, to all of you wonderful ladies, I believe what I'm hearing, what I heard from the wonderful lady from Idle No More, is that we, first and foremost as human beings, need to be Nutsamot. Nutsamot in Salish language simply means we are one. We as human beings have not been one, and we need to be. So, apology made, apology accepted, Nutsamot. That means that you are now one. Nutsamot again. Thank you very much. If it's in the hearts of the witnesses who were called, you have an opportunity to briefly say what you heard, seen, and what you felt. If it's in your hearts, and it's okay for witnesses not to say anything at all. But if you would like to, now's your opportunity. What you heard, seen, and felt.
I don't know exactly how to put it into words, but I feel that this learning was incredible for me and for all of us. And the apology is clearly deep and resonates in my heart and soul. I think the experience we had yesterday was in a way meant to be, because that learning was needed. The colonization can creep into our lives at any moment, any time, and catches us unawares. But I feel a profound gratitude, actually, for this whole session, that this even happened, that we're addressing it, meeting it head on, for your words, for all of you. And my heart is full with so much learning and gratitude. And thank you.
Thank you. Family's going to come and shake your hand.
Hello, yes, just a brief few comments. Yesterday was very powerful. That moment somebody really stood up and seized a moment. I believe that was JB. I'm not sure, was it? Yeah. And wow, I was blown away by her strength to stand up and speak. And I felt in the room lots of different feelings, some confusion, and it was a moment. She took a moment, she seized the moment, just like you are right now. I know some of you, I don't know all of you, but what I'm witnessing is a great humility and an undoing of what we often do in various communities, women's community, Indigenous community, etc., is that we don't seize the moment. We let that kind of situation go, and then multiple stories and multiple thoughts and feelings emerge out into the community and fester and become toxic. And so I'm very appreciative that you have, in your tiredness of and believe me, I can see, I was thinking today on my way here, oh, the organizers must just be exhausted. I'm tired just coming here 2 days and all the listening and conversations and taking in such heartfelt, deep conversations and discourses and thoughts and feelings. And so I just really hold you up and thank you for taking this moment.
Thank you.
I will only take a moment. I would just like to thank you guys for having invited me to be here, and this has been an incredibly eye-opening experience, and this ceremony has been just incredibly awakening for me, and I just really want to thank the organizers for, in the first place, having invited me to share the space with you guys, and I really, really appreciate that, so thank you.
I was requested to say this by one of the witnesses. To the witnesses who were called, as well as all of you who are witness to this, it's the responsibility of the witness to retell the history of the moment. Work, here's the work. The work was an apology. The apology was made and accepted, and a move forward, and that the House did what was in their hearts, and what they did was right. All of you as well, as you move forward from today, it's your responsibility as well, because you're in the House, to take responsibility as well, to say what it is that you heard, what you seen, and what you felt, so that as we move away, others beyond this House are going to say something. You're going to hear it. They're going to say something. The witness's responsibility is to say, no, this is what happened. It's your responsibility as guests as well to say, no, this is what we seen, this is what we heard, and this is what we felt. On behalf of this wonderful family, they want to thank the witnesses who spoke. They want to thank you for your words. They heard them, and they felt them. And they want to thank you for those words. To the witnesses who were called, the work is now complete. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay.
That's it?
Thank you so much. Awesome. Happy to help you.
Yes. Yep.
I saw you at Musqueam for way of the ceremony not too long ago.
Cool. Thank you. Happy to help you. So happy to help you. Oh, thank you so much.
Hosia. So, I think we need a bit of a break. We have decolonized our agenda for the day. I have no idea what's happening next. So why don't we, if someone wanted to bring me a cheat sheet, the MC has lost the agenda. So how about we just decide that we'll take 5 minutes, stretch your legs, we'll get resituated with the rest of the flow of the day. Oh, here comes an agenda. I still don't know what time it is, though. 11. We were supposed to be in panels at 11. What time is it now? Quick, who knows? 11:14. All right, well then why don't we make our ways to our panels then. So to the panelists, first of all, to the panelists that are here, I acknowledge that you've all been here on time, that you've taken time out of your day to be here and to prepare. So I'm exceptionally grateful for bearing witness to the work that we needed to do. So out of respect for our panelists, if we could just take care of our bodies as quickly as we can so that we can make it into our panels. I know how hard it is to be a panelist, that little butterfly you get in your stomach as you spend a lot of time to prepare to do your work. So if we could please respect that. So we have some amazing panels heading up: healing as a site of resistance, hiring practices around women and their lived experiences, and LGBTQI2S panel. So some amazing things. So please grab a coffee, get something, hit the amatout, and make your way to your panels, please. OCM.